Hi everybody. I wanted to go ahead and create a screencast going over the different parts of our time together on Thursday. And so for this screencast, I am only going to go over our first two workshop objectives, some clarification around the LDC teacher expectations for the school years 2016 and 17, and then just to go also back over the instructional ladder, how to build that, the different parts. And so this screencast is for anybody who maybe was not able to be with us on Thursday, or if you had to leave early, or if you just happen to need a little bit of a reminder of how certain things work, or the different teacher expectations, or the schedule. So this is for you, and hopefully this is helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with clarifying some things around the expectations. Here's our year one schedule, and as you may or may not know or remember, we do have one particular change, and that is with round two. So originally we were going to have round two start the week of December 5th. However, we have pushed that back a week just simply because the first round and the second round were pretty close together, especially when you throw in the Thanksgiving holiday. So now round two will be December 12th through 16th. PD, of course, will be that Thursday, December 15th. And so Queenie and I will be doing classroom visits December 12th through the 14th. Of course, PD the 15th, and then December 16th, which is Friday, she and I wanted to go ahead and leave that open in order to check in with the teachers that we visited during round one, and we would be visiting during their planning periods, just to see, where they're at. Is there any supports that we can give, answer any questions? Like I said, these will just be during their planning periods, and just kind of make sure that they feel supported even though we are not seeing them that particular round. And so here is a year-long look at the schedule that Queenie went ahead and put together, and this was emailed out to everybody. So as you can see, specific teachers will be seen during specific rounds. We went ahead and left round 7 open. We're still kind of thinking about how we want to do that. Of course, we're coming to the end of our time together for the year. And that week, April 24th through April 28th, is a planning week, a time for us to think about what we want to do in terms of year 2 and how to continue pushing LDC forward. So that week's a little tricky. We'll go ahead and visit that a little bit more, probably around February and March, but we wanted to at least make you aware of it at this point in time. Here's the round 2 observation debriefing schedule, and Queenie went ahead and emailed this out to everybody who was affected by this. And as you can see, the areas that are shaded gray, that represents when we will be visiting your classrooms, doing observations, and then of course, since it's very important to us to do our debriefs face-to-face, and of course I'm sure you want the feedback as well, those areas are shaded in tan. And like I said, this was all emailed out. So in continuing and looking at those LDC teacher expectations, we've gone over the observation schedule. In terms of your modules, as you know, anytime you start one, please go ahead and share it with myself and Queenie, even if it's not finished or if it's not complete or you don't really like it. Whatever, just please go ahead and add us on through those collaboration settings and core tools. And then in order to give you feedback, Queenie will be doing ELA and social studies, and I will be going into my discomfort or out of my comfort zone, and I will be providing feedback to those in science, CTE, and fine arts, since I know we have some fine arts individuals with us as well. Module completion expectations. So we do ask that you complete 3 modules throughout the 2016-17 school year, and one of those can be small, 2 of those would be large. And these are the dates in which we would like to ensure that each module is written and taught. That first module, that can be the one that you started on day 2 back in October, the first time that we met. And like it says here, we just ask that that is written and taught by December 5th. The reason for this is because when we all get together on December 15th for our next round of PD, we will be using that day to dive into those rubrics. We will be scoring student work, and we will continue our work at looking at the data that you see through the scoring so that we can really start to hone in on the skills that our students need in order to be not only successful in our content areas, but college and career ready as well. I wanted to go ahead and just real quickly show the paradigm shifts to you again. Of course, we'll be looking at this at every time that we are together, but just to kind of remember that this is where we are headed. And in my visits to the classroom last week, I saw a lot of the paradigm shifts that are listed here in addition to others, and was very, very pleased with seeing all the really cool, neat, wonderful things you guys are doing. So I really appreciate your hard work, and it makes me really, really excited to be part of the team of Rock Hill. So now let's go ahead and dive into the instructional ladder. And this is a graphic that we've seen a couple of times already, and it works pretty well, so I wanted to throw it in again. This is also included in your PRP. And as you can see, we have 4 skill clusters, and as you already know from working on your modules, we have those 4 skill clusters, and we're starting at the bottom of the ladder because we're utilizing backward planning. So we have preparing for the task, and then we have 2 skills that are mandatory for your LDC module, task engagement and task analysis. And as we know, these are the only 2 skill areas that are mandatory for your instructional ladder on any module. Then we move into the reading process. We have a couple of skills that are listed here. These are the ones that are the most common that teachers use, but once again, this is your instructional ladder. You have the autonomy to hit the skills that your particular students need. Moving into transition to writing, some kind of bridging activity to go ahead and help students move over to that writing process. And then once again, we have 6 different parts of the writing process. These are the most common, but depending on what you need your students to do, you may keep or eliminate or add wherever you see fit here. And so then just moving on, this just kind of elaborates on what we just went ahead and looked at. Once again, we just have those skill clusters. Within each one, there are specific skills. What do my students need to be successful in that teaching task? And then when they are finished with those skills, those students should have certain abilities, things that you can see or witness or observe so that you know that your students have acquired that skill and that you can move forward, or you might need to reteach. This is a screenshot of a tool that I included in your PRP, just a really good bird's eye view of all the different possibilities you have for skills underneath each skill cluster. As you may or may not remember, in Core Tools, when you are picking out your different skills, as you build that instructional ladder, you have a box with a couple of drop boxes and a whole bunch of options. So if I go into preparing for the task, I can go ahead and choose any of these skills that I have right here, any of these 2 skills underneath preparing for the task, and then if I have a drop box under bridging conversation, it'll take me to these 3 options. So it's just kind of honing down what I need. Same thing here. So like I said, rather than having to go deeply into each drop box and kind of think about, oh, what do I want? This will hopefully let you go ahead and look down and see what is available to you. And then you can go ahead and maybe make that search a little bit easier on yourself. And then the next couple of slides that I have for you, these are also in your PRP. I wanted to go ahead and hit the most common skills underneath each skill cluster, tell you how those skills are defined. Once again, under absolutely no obligation to use any of these other than task engagement and task analysis. But like I said, these are the most popular, so just trying to make life a little easier on you. This is the first one, preparing for the task. 5 most common under reading process, 3 most common under transition to writing, and the 4 most common under the writing process itself. And this is just an activity that we went ahead and engaged in. As you remember, I asked you to go ahead and start thinking about what skills or what content do your students need to do or understand in order to complete the teaching tasks that you've given them, and then to think about why these skills are needed. So once again, that backwards planning. What do they need? Why do they need them? And then of course, how are we going to get them there? So what are we going to need to do as instructors and facilitators in order to ensure that they get the skills that will give them that content knowledge or that college or career readiness? And then this kind of breaks it down a little bit more. So as you know, each skill is going to be learned through a mini task, or what we typically call strategies, in our classrooms. And then I invite you to go ahead and think that as you plan, to ask yourself, how important is it that the students need this particular skill? We know that instructional time is pretty tight for all of us. So if students don't really need the skill or a specific skill, you may not need it. Or if they seem to have a pretty good grasp of a certain skill, you might not need to take as much time to teach it or reinforce it as you do in others. So that's another part of the backwards planning, being intentional and being mindful. So this is going to take us to just a little bit more around this. So once again, each skill has a mini task. Once again, commonly called a strategy by most of us. And then these are just the different aspects of each mini task. If you choose to go in and create your own, just go ahead and remember that these are the parts that each mini task must need. Also keep in mind that if you go ahead and you take a mini task that's already out of the library of core tools, just go ahead and make sure your prompt, your student product, scoring guide, and your estimate for pacing have been modified according to what you need for your particular students. And then another tool that I went ahead and included in your PRP, it's found on page 8, the instructional ladder checklist. This is a lot like the teaching task checklist that we used on day 2, the first time we came together. And you can go ahead and use this while you're building your module. And as you can see from looking at it, it is very much tied into every section of the instructional ladder, takes in mind that backward design idea of thinking and planning. So it's just a really good way to either use it to give feedback to somebody else, or just to go ahead and go through real quickly and make sure that you've got things aligned the way that they should be aligned for optimum results. And then, so this is something that I also shared with you. It's in your PRP on the very back page. These are skill cluster collections. Each one of these collections contains about 10 to 13 different mini tasks that are pretty popular and pretty easy to use. And they are all aligned towards the skill clusters that I have listed here. So there's a few that are aligned specifically towards preparing for the task, others that are aligned specifically towards that reading process, and then once again, specifically aligned towards transition to writing. You can go to these bit.lys and you can go ahead and just add those right into your My Library collection on Core Tools, and that way they are always going to be at your disposal. So those are there for you, hopefully make your life a little easier. And as you go ahead and start creating, and the title on this one's a little wrong, it should actually read Creating Your Next Module. So if you went ahead and you created a small module the first time around, your next module will have to be a bit larger. So as you do that, please remember that you're just going to cover a broader piece of content that is worthy of your time. Various texts that involve rigorous reading and understanding. So some informational pieces, nonfiction, maybe some fictional pieces depending on what you're diving into, but definitely rigorous is the key word here. A major piece of writing, one that we can go ahead and utilize the LDC rubrics on in order to score, and then you should have a series of mini tasks or strategies that you can evaluate along the way to ensure that your students are acquiring those skills they need to accomplish your final teaching task. And then this was what we accomplished during our work time on Thursday. That short module, that one we started on day 2, if it was not finished. Please go ahead and finish that. Queenie and myself noticed that a lot of people had not had an opportunity to do that, so we're asking that you do finish that, even though you may have already taught the module. If you have taught the module, go ahead and make those modifications that you might need based on your teaching experience. You know, hindsight is 20/20. And then after that, please begin working on your second module. As you know, that will be due at the end of January. And then lastly, like I said, when we get back together that week of, or excuse me, on December 15th, please go ahead and bring at least 10 copies of that final product from that module in order to score, so that we can go ahead and not only learn how to use the rubrics, but also continue compiling the data on our students. And that's it. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this, and I look forward to seeing you all in December. Take care. Have a great week. Bye-bye.